Rumpelstiltskin was unsurprised when they walked into a scene of chaos at the hospital. He walked by the door as Henry, Emma, and Mary Margaret rushed towards the heart of the mess. The sheriff was there, and beyond him, Rumpelstiltskin was unsurprised to see the Queen standing by a vacant bed. She wore a mask of careful concern which was almost nauseating. He didn't need to venture closer to hear what was being said. The mysterious patient, Henry's Prince Charming, this John Doe, was missing. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of foul play, but sometimes when there was a queen in the vicinity, there didn't need to be. An apple could be a weapon in the hands of the right person. Emma Swan stepped deftly into her father's shoes, siding with the sheriff in their determination to find him. Rumpelstiltskin walked a little closer as Regina turned her smiling wrath on Henry. "Come along, Henry," she said, taking the boy by the hand. "Is there a problem?" Rumpelstiltskin asked, schooling his expression into something like mild curiosity. Regina stopped dead, and the genuine surprise written all over her face was a delight. "Mr. Gold," she said, staring at him. "I didn't expect to see you here." He smiled placidly. "I can't imagine why not," he said. "After all, it's not every day that someone wakes up from an eternal coma, is it?" Her eyes glittered strangely, and he shrugged one shoulder in dismissal of the thought. "You know what Mary Margaret is like. If it's not a bird with a broken wing, it's a coma patient. I have no doubt she would have had him tucked in a shoebox wrapped in my best towels if I turned my back." Henry stifled a snicker. "So you let your wife rush to a stranger's bedside?" she challenged. He looked down at his hand on the cane, then back up at her face. "Do you think anyone could stop her if she put her mind to something?" he said. "Mary Margaret is a stubborn woman. If I forbade it, I would be living with frosty moods and a distinct lack of hot dinners." Regina's lips curled mockingly. Powerful Gold, cowed by a little girl. Rumpelstiltskin's eyes flicked to the boy she was holding on to so desperately. "Quite," he said, then gestured mildly with one hand. "Please excuse me. I'd like to see what I can do to be of use." Regina made a short, sharp sound of indignation, stepping aside. Rumpelstiltskin smiled to himself as he walked past her. Once might have been a coincidence, but twice was confirmation. He was unsurprised that Mary Margaret caught his arm. She looked fraught, and he had no doubt she thought it was her fault. "Is there anything we can do?" he asked, looking at the sheriff. "I'll take it from here," Graham said. "Maybe take Mary Margaret home?" "No," Mary Margaret said. She looked at Rumpelstiltskin. "I woke him up. I just can't wait at home to find out if he's okay." His lips twitched. It was starting. "Very well, dearie," he said. "I'll leave you in Miss Swan's capable hands, if that suits her." "No problem," Emma agreed. She was looking around the room. "Sheriff, the cameras, are they working?" "They should be," Graham agreed. He nodded to Gold. "Mr. Gold?" Rumpelstiltskin smiled slightly. "Don't let me hold you back," he said. He accepted Mary Margaret's fleeting kiss to his cheek, then all three dashed off, leaving him standing in the ward, quite alone. He turned, walking into the abandoned room, looking at the bed, the torn lines. Snow White's dear prince always was a hardy sort. Dashing dragon slayer, erstwhile shepherd, bandit catcher. He was exactly the type to get up out of a coma and go for a little stroll. Now, he knew, was when the trouble would start. It was going to take a careful hand to gently steer his wife towards her true love. The bonds of matrimony were important to her. No doubt Regina had taken a particular delight in knowing that, so that if or when the curse broke, not only would Snow White have betrayed one husband, but by going back to the first, she would betray another. It was true that the marriage was little more than a sham created by Regina, but 28 years had built on a small spark of mutual amicability and turned it into a true relationship. He did not love her, not truly, but, much to his astonishment and fury, he cared for her far more than he wanted or intended to. It would also take caution to keep Regina from realizing that at least one of her sleeping puppets had woken up. Rumpelstiltskin walked silently back out of the hospital, thinking on matters. It wasn't until he reached the car that he realized young Henry had left his book in the back seat. He returned to his shop, leaving the sign turned to closed. It was not good business sense on a Saturday, but if anyone asked, he always had the useful excuse of a stock take. In the back shop, he sat down at his workbench and opened the book, leafing through the pages. It was a work of art, taking his breath away with its audacity. Whoever the storyteller was, they clearly liked to tell their side of the stories much more than the truth. The bell of the shop jangled, which put him on his guard at once. The door had been locked. Only one person would have the gall to walk into his shop like that. He closed the book at once, covering it over with some scrap cloths, and rose from the table. He was halfway to the curtain which separated the front of the shop from the back when it was pushed aside. Rumpelstiltskin stopped dead. "Regina," he said, mouth turning up in something that wasn't a smile. "This is an unexpected surprise?" "I'm sure it is," she purred, approaching him. "How can I help you?" She laid her hand on his shoulder and he ground his teeth, keeping his smile in place. "I'm here to remind you of something important, Mr. Gold," she murmured, fixing her eyes on his. He could feel the hooks of her power, the claws of the curse, sinking into his mind to tug it as she wished. "About your marriage,"